All right, folks, here we go. Yes. Is it possible that we have two different streams going? We are still getting... Hi there, Kristen Perry. Yes. Folks, we're still adjusting to... I'm not sure what to make of it. As long as it works. As long as it works. Let me check this. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. It's very possible. I didn't think you could do that. I don't think so. Is it possible that we have two different live streams going? I don't think so, but I'm still figuring out the whole... No, I think it's just one. Yeah. All right. Well, the good news is I believe it's working. Yep, that's what I think. There's Bill. Yep, that was fun last night, wasn't it? There's Debbie. All right, folks, we let me just double check. Oh, okay, still doing that. I don't know why. X is on a little bit of a delay for whatever reason, but the sound is good. The sound is good. So now I should, as I think of it though, let me just double check. I believe our YouTube sound should also be equally fine.
We're currently generating 4.9 kilowatts.
Yep, and it is. Our YouTube sound should also be... Yes, there's Debbie. Yep, there's our YouTube family. You need to build on that a little bit. Yes, there's Debbie. Yep, there's our YouTube family. Oh, okay. Only channel subscribers can send messages. Good, I like that. Yes, there's Debbie. We need to do that on FB. Okay, now we're going to begin in 3 minutes. You know, I'm really not going to talk about it, but this NBA scandal is unbelievable. Holy cow. I'm so glad that I don't bet on the games. My God, they're all rigged. We are like, nope. We have some of the scandals we're going to get into. Nothing new there, Bill. Nope. Other than I hope we're not. I don't think we're going to be invaded by these kids today. I don't think so. You know what else I don't understand? I spoke to a teacher at Pontiac and said, "Thank you, Pat. Yes, we've established that." When I say the audio is good, that normally means I'm well aware that it is. You know, that is. I'll touch on that, Mckee. That is. But that's not a solution. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. They shouldn't have. Listen, they shouldn't. You know, that's special circumstance. But get a doctor's note. Good. Thank you, Debbie. Rhode Island, the kids are not supposed to have their phones in school. So I don't understand how those kids yesterday were even in the chat or watching. Good. Roger says we're ready to go. Good. So I don't really understand that. How did those kids yesterday? They were in school and they were in our chat, which should not have been. So that's clearly not working. You know, this, I don't know. Does he really need, I'm not trying to say that your child doesn't have that, but there's always, someone always seems to have some kind of an answer on why the rule should not apply to their child. So Oh, okay. YouTube started vertical. Now it's back to horizontal. We'll work our way through it. We will work our way through it. That much I know. All right, we're going to begin. Thank you, Bendy. So as we close in on 70,000 followers, although I'll admit, I mean, at times when we've been live on YouTube during this time, and we'll begin, folks. Good afternoon on this beautiful sunny Thursday. Boy, a lot of news, as a matter of fact. As we speak, now we're trying out, we are live on X. We are live on our YouTube channel. Just find the page. Okay. Yeah, everybody says that. I don't know. Then that means a doctor's note. But these other kids should not have phones. But we are also live on Facebook and X, YouTube, and we're live, excuse me, on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. Now, folks, remember, you can always listen online at our website, which is dpetro.com. This portion of the program, and it's brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They've had a fantastic season. I'm not surprised. They grind it. They work it. Yep, big time. 7 days a week. Family-run business. What a beautiful selection they have. Pumpkins, straw bales, cornstalks, gourds, Indian corn, homegrown mums and kale. Hey, if you're entertaining for Thanksgiving, why not? You know, it looks a lot nicer if you have some nice fall decorations, either inside or outside. But pumpkins, straw bales, cornstalks, Indian corn. Plus, at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, they have native vegetables and local honey is available. Folks, stop in and see them at PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, depetro.com, and we have it, if you're watching, it's scrolling at the bottom. Details on depetro.com. I'm very happy. Depetro.com serves a very important purpose because many times, and I don't mind explaining it, but if I post something on social media, then even myself, sometimes I have to then go on, scroll down the page to try to find it. If we put it on the website, our top stories scroll past at the top, and then it's just, I find it easier to find. So check it out. And we continue to break news. The website, depetro.com. As I've stated in the past, I mean, now I don't think I'd start a website, but we have it and it works efficiently. You can listen to the radio show on it. We have all of the radio hours right here listed in library fashion every hour. As Bendy points out, I should mention that a little bit more. Plus, we have links to all of our social media, and then we use it to break stories. We broke the story. Listen, I didn't say it was like, the Manhattan Project. I'm not saying it was Deflategate, but we did break the story that they found bullets in that Smithfield Elementary School. And much like we really broke stories regarding Pornogansett or Ponagansett, as they call it. So again, it's all on the website, depetro.com, which is brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Remember, folks, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge, and they're waiting for you at the Coesit Inn. Now, I think I'm hearing that on YouTube, there's a little, maybe something off with the syncing of sound. So audio sync issue. Okay, we'll deal with it. Good thing, our backup. You could always listen to the radio. You could always watch on Facebook. You could always watch on X. What I wanted to mention, I've noticed, by the way, on YouTube, that YouTube used to be able to put it down on your screen and do other things, meaning on your phone screen. And I think they've pretty much, now you have to pay if you want, which I think a lot of people felt was a nice function or feature to have, I should say. So, but let's get to the main event, because there is some stories. Actually, I am going to start with, well, let me also just mention one more to stay on schedule, because then otherwise we fall behind a little bit. And again, this hour that we're live, the radio show set 11, and 1 to 2 live, where we're on all these different platforms as we're trying to navigate the whole situation regarding both portrait or landscape. But I did want to mention this portion of our program. Yep, Propane Plus. You're looking residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. Remember, log on at propaneplus.com, heating or cooling. And remember, propaneplus.com, someone asked me, well, I don't get out of work until 6 o'clock. Is the website, are they up at night? Okay, I'll answer that question. Propaneplus.com is actually available 24/7. And I know someone else said, well, there's different definitions of 24/7. Not really. No, not really. 24/7 basically means 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I'm unfamiliar with different definitions of 24/7. But anyhow, Propane Plus, always there for you. And online at propaneplus.com. You just type in your zip code, residential or commercial. You can depend on Propane Plus. I'm looking at the screen. So those that have vertical, then I see that they still put me at the bottom. We'll figure it out. I don't. Okay, I'm better just with that, where I'm seeing just the horizontal. So, but Propane Plus. Now I want to touch on, because I mentioned it quite a bit with the radio show in regards to this situation at Woonsocket High School, and really the Woonsocket schools. And I want to be very clear with, because I did get an email from someone saying, I think it's unfair you're criticizing the superintendent and the school committee, and it's the parents, and it's some of these kids. I get all of that. I do. But the fact of the matter is, I think this comes down to, and I understand actually why there's problems. I understand why there's problems, because more and more, it's becoming more frequent, I should say, in society, that people are not held accountable for their actions, because that's really what this is about. That's what it's really about, accountability. And what do I mean by that? More and more, and it does fall into politics, but there's more people. It's becoming more of an attitude of the people. It's, to me, it's a little bit of the attitude of everybody's a victim. Everybody's a victim, and it's not your fault. And you're not expected to hold a job. And if you can't afford something, it's not your fault, and they should literally, someone should be paying for that. And you shouldn't have to pay rent. To me, it's a little bit of an attitude, lack of accountability, and you see it more and more. Now, granted, there are people in political office that continually tell people that they're a victim and it's not their fault. And for whatever reason, there's so many people that immediately go to race. Always the fallback. I one of the things I like about TikTok is you stumble on with your for your page, and I stumbled into, it was a police body cam, and it had to do with a woman in a bank, and it was in Illinois, outside of Chicago, and she got flagged. She went into a bank and tried to open an account with one ID, and then they caught her at a second bank with a different ID trying to open an account. And so it got flagged as fraud, clearly fraud. So while she's there, and it's the video is so annoying, because the police, to me, were almost like too nice. And she's actually on the phone, sitting inside the bank, as the police are trying to tell her that basically she's caught. And she's on the phone. Finally, they had to, handcuff her, which they should have done initially. But at one point, all of a sudden, she said, I think this is race. This is racial. This is race. This is prejudice, or something akin to that. Out of nowhere, just as a deflect. I think it was, two Caucasian officers. She's a woman of color. They have her on video. She's like, I was never at that bank in Westlake or Westland, wherever it was. Nope, I wasn't there. Man, we have you on video entering that bank and getting into a vehicle. Who was driving you? I don't know who it was driving me. I mean, just these preposterous, not even explanations. But she fell into that. After the press conference today, I watched it was really U.S. Attorney in New York had the press conference regarding this NBA gambling. And I was looking for some commentary afterwards. A lot of times in the past, ESPN would have on a good legal expert. I think there's this guy, Matthew McCann, and he is kind of like, I believe, he's certainly the Sports Illustrated legal expert, but sometimes they use him. I think I've seen him on ESPN. But anyhow, instead, I get Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith starts saying, this huge gambling ring. Number one, they're tampering with games. You can bet on player statistics and then purposely not playing, leaving games early. There's so many videos of that guy for the Heat, Terry Rozier, that played for the Celtics, purposely tossing the ball away. And then Chauncey Billups with, it sounds pretty high level with these high level. It's like something out of The Sopranos where they were doing in New York. But anyhow, Stephen A. Smith starts blaming it on President Trump. Hey, look what's going on in the White House. And no one's going to tell me this is an accident. And there's the director of the FBI there. And immediately, I'm not a fan of his. He does get some time in mainstream media. I've seen him on Stephen A. Smith now. I've seen him on ABC's This Week with Jonathan Karl, Stephanopoulos, whatever. I've seen him on other platforms where they allow him to talk politics. I'm not a fan. I don't like his shtick, so to speak. But immediately, these are professional athletes. And the FBI have them nailed dead to rights. That Chauncey Billups, they're not just betting on games like Pete Rose. They're involved with wholesale fraud of betting. The first thing, Stephen A. Smith, they pivot to, well, we got to remember who's in. And clearly this is race. Absolutely ludicrous. No, when this comes out, and what you need to know is the FBI U.S. Attorney, they don't bring charges unless basically it's a layup. They don't. They have a much higher standard than local policing. And I recognize a lot of people don't realize that, but they do. And a lot of times, let's just say if you have whoever, the Lincoln police or the Cranston police, whoever, on a case that the Attorney General of Rhode Island, Peter Norona's office, that they would bring charges with the help of the police department, or even the state police, that matter. The feds, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, they have a much higher threshold. That's why they have such a high clearance rates on convictions. They don't bring charges unless they can get a conviction on a case. So when they do bring charges, it's essentially a slam dunk. If you get charged by the feds, it's really difficult to beat it. Ask the late Buddy Cianci. Ask Richard Hatch. Ask the 3 councilmen in North Providence. When the FBI and the U.S. Attorney, and I get all the press releases, they're all plea bargained out. It's very rare that there is a trial that if the FBI is involved in the U.S. Attorney, because as I said, they have a much higher threshold. And I've heard and dealt with local police who've said, oh my God, the case we had where we got a conviction, if that was the FBI U.S. Attorney, they wouldn't even bring the charges. So they wouldn't have even tried that case. They don't do it unless they really have the good time. So the fact that they're involved, the fact that this has been ongoing. The fact that you have the FBI director, Kash Patel, go to the press conference, they're aware it's high profile. They're aware it's the NBA. There's so many devices and technology that they have available to them. And the thing about a lot of these players or these gamblers is they're not hardcore criminals, meaning they'll roll, they'll play ball. Normally, there's probably someone that's cooperating somewhere in this whole thing. So my point is, all of these excuses that I heard Stephen A. Smith making on ESPN, at no point is there any accountability on the individuals involved. And there's 3 former Celtics involved. Now, admittedly, I'm going to talk about Woonsocket, but what the point I was trying to make was there's just a complete lack of accountability. And I want to be very specific with, because I think it's only fair, the criticism that I have of how they're handling things with fights in Woonsocket. I think yesterday, by the way, these kids are so brazen. Yesterday, as we're in the live stream, and anytime we've talked about Pontiac, suddenly there's kids from Pontiac that are in the chat, and that clearly should not, they're not supposed to be in the chat. They're not even supposed to be, have access to a phone in school. I was speaking to a teacher last night that said, well, you can't police everything, and they go in the men's room or the restroom or the whatever, go outside, or they have it down below them, and there shouldn't be anything like that. But let me stay on schedule, because I do want to touch on these fights in Woonsocket that they're getting attention, and I think they should be getting attention. But this portion of our program, folks, I want to remind you about ServPro of Providence. Remember, call them today when disaster strikes. ServPro of Providence, fast, thorough, professional. You can depend on ServPro, 401-941-5500. Hey, when disaster strikes, everything changes. Water damage. Water damage is real. The damage that water can do, it's so destructive, because water then brings mold. And if you have a fire, not only do you have fire damage, you have smoke damage. Then you're going to have water damage. Then you could have mold. With ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500, when disaster strikes, you can depend on ServPro Providence, 401-941-5500. Now, I do want to touch on the situation with Woonsocket. It's really the Woonsocket schools. I mean, it would actually be easier if it was just the high school, but we're seeing a rash of arrests. And so what stuck out to me, though, was they had a school committee hearing last night, what have you, and it was the superintendent saying, I'm sick of this. And one of the people that caught my attention was an individual, and it could have been a member of the school committee, and I'll look it up, but kind of said, if anyone has any suggestions on what we should do, please come forward. I find that the most frightening. And as I have said, what they're doing is not working. Woonsocket superintendent said he's tired of school fights and seeks to end disruption. Here's what I don't hear. I don't hear anyone saying, we reached out to a school in Philadelphia that had a terrible problem, and here's what they told us, and here's what they did to solve it. I don't hear anyone saying, we spoke to a principal in the Bronx. We spoke to a principal in Baltimore. We spoke to a superintendent in Chicago. Why try to reinvent the wheel? Sick and tired of the fighting doesn't do anything. Students need to shape up, or they're no longer going to be welcome in the district. I go back to when at the last meeting, when it was either the mayor or the head of the school committee said, we're all to blame here. They're actually not all to blame. Channel 10 keeps promoting that Instagram account. So anyone that has any suggestions, like that is What is that supposed to mean? What resources are you using? Has anyone reached out? This is hardly the first time that this has ever happened. You're not the only ones. Woonsocket school leaders seek solutions. That's just, I mean, that's inexcusable to me. During a Woonsocket school committee meeting, parents voiced their frustration. Here's where Woonsocket School Committee Chair Paul Bougeot spoke with NBC 10. Please, parents, be there for your kids. Amy Coster, a school committee member. That's not enough. Teach them right versus wrong. That's not an answer. The parents don't know right and wrong. That's a dead end. That's not teach. Be there for your kids. Teach them right versus wrong. That's not working. That's not a solution. If you have parents that are driving children to fights, filming them and then posting them like a trophy on social media, you think you're going to get through those people that? We have parents driving these kids, blah, blah, blah. 21 students been charged for their alleged aggressive behavior. This is embarrassing and sickening, said Superintendent Patrick Mckee. He said, we're not just sitting around. According to the Woonsocket School Committee, 10 students have been suspended. If you get caught in a fight, you're going to be arrested. Could be suspended. School committee approved the purchase of cell phone pouches. That's not enough. What? Here's the thing. Patrick Mckee, urged anyone who has an idea or a solution to solve the fighting, contact him. What are you talking about? What? Superintendent Patrick Mckee, that's the type of line that gets me. If you have any that's what do we have you for? Is this the first school that has had a problem? No, of course not. Much worse districts. What is this? And what's McGree doing other than Governor McKee right now is running commercials saying that truancy is down. If anyone has any suggestions, it's too bad we don't have a superintendent of school committee. Oh, that's right, we do. What are you talking about? Listen, I believe, as I have stated, you're dealing with a different element here. These are not typical parents. This is wildly selfish. Clearly, these students and families are unfit to be amongst other students. As I have mentioned, school is not just about learning subjects. School should be you learn to get along with others. It means if you're on a team and you're going to compete against that team, another school, that you learn to be a good sport. There's a lot to learning. It's the proper way to ask a question. It's a proper way to address a teacher. It's a proper way to address an adult who's in charge. So you clearly have something wrong. To just, whoever that school committee, I'm asking parents, love your kid. Like what? That is beyond the pale of pathetic. That is white flag of surrender. Many of these individuals, let's just step back for a moment. The only thing that some people tragically understand is force. And I'm not saying this should be that type of discipline. But look at who we incarcerate. We incarcerate people that's the only thing they seem to understand is a harsh penalty, that there are consequences to actions, that you don't make excuses. That is a losing battle. If anyone has any suggestions, that is beyond the pale of white flag of surrender. You might as well resign. You remember there was that story of the guy, he was Principal Joe. I think he was at a really tough school in Philadelphia. He used to walk through the hall with a baseball bat. I want to step back just for a moment. I'm not proclaiming I have the answer. But what I don't hear There are school districts around the country. See, this is where the teachers union completely fails, because how do they not have the proper reason? A school in this and it worked. A school in Brockton did this and it worked. A school in the Bronx or Queens or Brooklyn, there's some tough sections, I mean, everywhere. Hartford. I mean, you can go down the list of Roxbury, of different school districts that have some difficult situations. My problem is they seem to be approaching this under the guise that no one's ever faced it before. I don't understand what all the teacher meetings are about. I don't understand where all the resources are going. And by the way, this doesn't just fall on the superintendent. What is the purpose of the quote school committee other than to give all the teachers raises? What is the function of this? You're allowing, let me explain what's going on. You're allowing 1%, less than 1%. You're allowing less than 1% to dictate how the school year is going to go, to dictate how much learning is going to go on. As I said, right now, Kathy Gregg of the Providence Journal did a story that, and I was unaware of this, but the Governor Mckee is, let me just find the Mckee, Math Matters push gets radio and TV spots. Do they cross a line into political ads? That's in the Providence Journal. Of course they do. I haven't even seen them. Ads promoting Mckee's Math Matters don't cross a line, Watchdog says. Here's why. Of course they do. All featured in a recent run of TV radio ads promoting Governor Mckee's signature Math Matters campaign. They don't mention Mckee by name. What is... Of course it is. Of course it is. That's exactly why they were. Why else would you be running ads? So foolish, folks. So I'm going to defer. I mean, there's a couple of things. Number one, they have to just, you can't have people. But to me, it does begin and end with the guardians, the parents, whoever they are. I think if they're saying they're looking for solutions, publish the mugshots of the students arrested and name them. Let everyone see who they are. Maybe that, what they're doing right now is not working. So that's number one. Number two, it needs to be, if there's any type of fight, it is expulsion. That clearly is not getting through. Of course the cell phones are a problem. But what I don't hear from the superintendent, like it doesn't, what does that solve? I'm sick of the fights. Oh, okay. As if that doesn't do anything. Good, glad you could vent. The school committee, we're going to ask the parents. The parents can't even take care of themselves. Do you understand? If you have parents that are driving children to fights and then filming it, you just lost the battle. The parents are not, the parents are beyond the pale. Those children should probably be removed from the home and put into foster care or DCYF or something of that nature. You see, it all chills down. But my point is clearly, if you are, and the people that pay taxes for the Woonsocket schools, you want to talk about a waste of money. They have shelter in place. There's no learning. When's the next fight going to be? Word starts to spread. Then the kids are filming the fights. This is completely broken. And I want to reiterate, but what I don't hear is an announcement that they're going to implement, that the superintendent and the school committee has announced they're going to implement a policy that was started in schools in pick a place, Baltimore, Chicago, Brockton, wherever. And as a result of that policy, they implemented it, fights dropped whatever it was, 90%. Now that would be taking action. So to just throw up your hands and say, I'm sick of it. And if anyone has any suggestions, I think that's the part that really just hit me the wrong way. That's not leadership. That's not leadership. And I think that, there should be, where's the education commissioner? Maybe, I don't know what the Woonsocket police, they're just reacting to the fights. But maybe there needs to be, we need 25 former police, military volunteers who will stand every 30 feet in the school. Something drastic, something that at least prevents that, something that limits, I don't know, where the fights are or what time of day they're starting or ending. But I think it's not unreasonable that students and parents that want to go and attend and be interactive in class and want to learn and want to make the most of it and get the most out of it, that they should be allowed to do that. And they're unable to do it because the adults that are in charge, namely the school committee and the superintendent, have failed those students because they're not taking strong enough action. That's what's going on. If you continually have a problem, and they do, then the word is not getting through. As I said earlier, whatever they're doing right now, it's the opposite. You need to do the opposite, like George on the Seinfeld episode of the opposite, because what they're doing right now is not working. So, and I get it. You can't put your hand on a child. Like I said, if they have parents that are behaving in that manner, where they're literally driving kids, then that, whatever is to be done, but that child and that family, you don't want them anywhere near the school. And these are not, 7-year-old kids. So I've spoken to teachers that have told me the most problematic students at a school are normally 14, 15. Really 15, because a lot of kids, the problem children, when they turn 16, they drop out of school. So they're no longer a problem. Now, they're now a problem for society, but at least they're not a problem in the school. The kids that are 16 and 17, 18 that are in the school, they want to be there. But I have heard consistently from teachers, the real problematic ones are the 14 and 15-year-olds. And listen, I agree. It is sad. They have a one-way ticket to nowhere. These kids that are 15, these students, 15, 16, they're what they don't know, but we know, because history tells us, they are going nowhere. They're ACI bound. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. They're just maybe there's something wrong with them. Maybe they need to be on medication. Maybe there's, for whatever reason it is, maybe they didn't learn to read and write. Maybe they live in an illiterate household. I don't know how much of it falls onto blame of them or blame on the parents. But they are going to be a drain on society. They're going to be a life of crime. They're going to be a life behind bars, in and out of jail, can't hold a job, drug addiction, alcohol, I'm homeless, I need food stamps, who's going to pay my rent? They got a long life ahead. 15 going nowhere fast. One-way ticket to Loserville, just like their parents. And it's sad. I don't have the patience tolerance. I can't even imagine. I freely admit, can't imagine sitting in an office with the likes of these, quote, parents. The only thing they did was successfully breed. And it's probably the only successful thing they've ever accomplished in their life. And it was probably by accident. They are no more ready or equipped to raise a child than, whatever. But there they are. That's my kid. Congratulations. A drain on society. Folks, I'll tell you where there is no drain. That is at Kids Club on the Pike. That's right. Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, with Kids Club on the Pike, it's the happy place for children. Birthday party venue, before and after school care, preschool, half and full day program, preschool children 3 through 5. They provide transportation, before and after care for school-age children 5 through 12, and it's perfect for a team celebration, birthday party venue, Kids Club on Pike. Call them. They're located right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnson line, 401-443-5336, 401-443-5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. I fully get it. Hey, you're not supposed to say things like that. It applies to anyone that falls into that. This is, by the way, this is the same crowd. They're incapable of raising their children. I'll tell you the crowd, because I see their comments because of social media. I normally interact with them, but when they threw that guy, they told that guy he was at the Orm Street overpass, right? The guy that he had put a couch there, then he put a chair there. People couldn't pass. School, no one could walk on the sidewalk. And when the police came and said, "Listen, you can't. This is insanity." People are donating furniture. The comments of the people defending him, that's the crowd. Where's he supposed to go now? As if it's up to them. You know what he's free to go anywhere he wants. That's the beauty of America. He could go anywhere. He could move. No, where's he supposed to go? Well, where are you going to put him? I always love that. They tell the homeless people, listen, you can't just set up a tent in a park. Well, where am I supposed to go? They're in the wrong country. If they were in China, they'd put them to work. If they were in North Korea, they'd be in a work camp. There's a lot of countries. Maybe that's where some of these people belong. Or that you belong in Cuba. Cuba, once a month, a truck comes down the street and they just throw you a box of your rations. There's your toilet paper. There's your toothpaste. There's some noodles. There's some bread. And you don't have to do anything, and we'll be back next month with another box. I mean, I think they're in the wrong society. Because I see these comments. Well, where's he supposed to go now? As if it's up to them. Something has to stop that, because this is a classic example. Again, these fights in Woonsocket that is on the nightly news, and it's every week, and these adults throwing up their hands. We don't know what to do. If anyone has any suggestions, so I love that. Now, why don't we go around the table? Why don't you have a conference room? You know what's better? A blue ribbon commission. Nothing gets accomplished. Everything they focus on is the value of the idea. Let's just sit in a room and nothing's going to be accomplished, but we're all going to feel good like we're accomplishing something. I don't know where a lot of these people came from. Okay. And I admit it is sad. Some of these, and they are these children, that they're so young, but it's a little bit loving. Where is this leading? And different things happen to people. There are people, by the way, that later in life, there used to be a thing, you go in the military, and how many people you're listening or watching, and someone, and they say, military, straighten me out, turn me around. Well, a lot of them can't get in the military because they can't do the math. So I remember years ago, Rhode Island had a great education commissioner in Deborah Gist. And I had her in the studio, and I was a supporter of hers, and we developed a good rapport. She said the Rhode Island high schools are turning out children that are unemployable. Unemployable. So many of these kids that get pushed through, and then they have to go to CCRI for remedial classes because they actually don't know proper English and they don't know basic math. And they have to go. So these kids, I got a high school diploma. Congratulations. And they're unemployable. And folks, like, where is this leading? With AI, so many jobs are going to be eliminated. I saw that former Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo was on part of not a panel, a speaking engagement. She spoke at Harvard with Larry Summers, former president of Harvard, is featured. He's the president in the social network that the Winklevoss twins meet with, and then he was the Commerce Secretary, and he, they have a good rapport. But she admitted, this is Queen, former Commerce Secretary, former Governor Gina Raimondo, and she now admits it was a wrong idea to encourage so many young people to become coders because they believed we need to become coders and then guaranteed a job, you'll be a computer coder. And what they're finding now is with AI, you don't need those jobs. So all these years later, I remember attending that press conference. She's like, we need to have these students that become computer coders. And now you have all these kids that say, yeah, I followed that path. I can't get a job anywhere. AI can do that. But folks, just to long and the short of it is a problem that I see in Woonsocket. And I will reach out to the superintendent if he wants to be a guest. But I don't see anyone taking drastic action. And this needs drastic action. You can't have the less than 1% ruin everything for the other 99%. The kids that are expelled, that's it. They should be. And maybe there should be more accountability with the parents. But it needs to, I don't hear any solutions coming from anyone that did some legwork. I don't understand what's going on when they have all these teacher meetings and the teachers get a professional day and all this other. I don't understand why they're not communicating with school districts in other parts of the country that have had the type of problem that they're featuring in Woonsocket. So, folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. That's right. Call Corey today. Get on the list now because the clock is ticking and you want to get your garage epoxied or seal coated, epoxy garages and patios. Now call Corey today. Free estimate, 401-283-9815. Makes a huge difference if he will epoxy your garage. 401-283-9815. They also can epoxy a patio, decorative concrete flooring, Quality Asphalt Seal Coating. 401-283-9815. But get on the list now because then they have to shut down when the real cold weather comes in. Now, I didn't want to go the whole time without mentioning that I spoke with Jim Hummel this morning, and he's got a good report in the Providence Journal that I think it's interesting about that. So you had the audit. I haven't talked a lot about the bridge, but this should interest Lynn Miller, and it has to tie in a little bit with how she was at Harvard, and I'm saying they would have asked her, but stumbled into some documents that showed that when they were going to publish the details about the Washington Bridge, that they had some information there, and then it was redacted. It was removed And what he found was they have documentation that shows that that bridge, there were warning signs 10 years ago when Gina Raimondo was the governor. And somehow it was redacted and taken out. So, and I give full credit to Hummel. Who told them to take it out? Why is that? Why was that removed? Why was the information? So someone came up with a draft, a report on the closure of the bridge. Now keep in mind, Mckee hid the report for over a year until it finally came out. I'm not, he's the last person I would point to as a leader, but think about this. So when this was conducted and completed, the audit, Biden was in office. Raimondo was Commerce Secretary. So the people that are doing an audit of the bridge, they come up with the report, and then suddenly they redact and take out anything that could point the finger saying that there were problems 10 years ago with the Washington Bridge. Who told them to do that? Why did they do that? Now, Hummel has speculated that it was the Biden administration that they caught wind of that, and they didn't want, as he called it, backsplash on their Commerce Secretary. But, I could, and I probably will spend more time on this going forward, but folks, look at what's happening. Like, why should we then trust that report? And Governor Mckee is insisting that his people will go to the State House and answer questions next month, but he's fighting them that he doesn't want them under oath. What is the point of having a hearing if they're not going to be under oath? It's a logical question. I think it's an easy question, and it's a question that makes sense. What are they hiding? Who told the people doing the audit to remove that line? Someone saw it. Someone saw it. Mckee initially started to blame Raimondo. Do you remember? I remember it. And then he backed off it. Someone told him to back off. He's not going to be forthcoming. I think that if they want to have hearings at the Rhode Island State House, I think you need also the people that did the audit. Now, here's the thing. If you try to get the DOT people up there and you try to talk their lingo and you try to, talk about these rods and this other stuff, it's a lose. Because they could be completely lying to you, but because you don't know about it, it could all sound like it makes sense. Or they could feign shock or I'm not sure what you mean by that, even though they know exactly. So I'm not sure exactly how effective some of these hearings could be. But one thing is for certain, is the Mckee people need to be under oath. And I think it speaks volumes that that's a sticking point for him. And he's fighting. God bless me. And from what I understand, he's even trying to make trades with some of the legislative leaders at the Rhode Island State House, where the governor is basically saying, I'll give you this or this, the ability to hire these people or give out jobs if we don't have to put my people under oath. I think that's a pretty simple question. To me, unless you're going to have the Mckee people under oath, what is, what's the point of having these hearings? If they can sit there, John Igliosi, think of this about the DOT. But all right, I get that Peter Alviti is, the pinata in the punching bag. And I've known Peter a long time. So I happen to enjoy a good relationship with Peter. But let's just put that to the side and him to the side for a moment. Not one person Igliosi is the chief of staff of the DOT. Now, one person has been demoted. Now, one person has lost pay. Now, forget about fired. They all keep getting raises. There's no accountability there at all. None. And it makes me very uncomfortable that Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee is trying to make trades like horse trading. I'll give you the ability to hire 10 people for the administration if you agree not to have our people under oath. I don't think that should be something that's traded. Not in the least. Folks, this portion of our program, Watson Materials, everyone's talking about them. I know why. Largest selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island, especially this time of year. I mean, the weather's nice, and you could really have a nice outside. Watson Materials, they have the landscape lighting. They have the pavers. They have the natural stone, cobblestone, decorative stone. It's like adding a 3-season room to your house. Watson Materials, 401-885-0600. One of our listeners sent me a picture. He went with Watson Materials. He watches all his Patriot games outside. And until he backed up the camera, I thought he was actually inside. That's how comfortable it is. Watson Materials, 401-885-0600. So I think, and a good job. Hummel posted that. It was published, in the Providence Journal. And again, the problem with someone like a Rhode Island Governor Dan Mckee is I just don't feel we get, I know, we don't get straight answers. Straight answers. It doesn't, when you think about it, if you step back, and it's not just it's the East Bay, but it really, as I mentioned, it affects all the traffic. The traffic right now, as we speak, on 95 North is starting to back up to the Cranston line. In the next hour, it'll be backed up to Jefferson Boulevard. And Governor Mckee just shrugs his shoulders. So no one's held accountable for that. It's actually the opposite of accountability. I'll tell you who's accountable. J. Perry Paving. What a difference it could make if they pave your driveway. Call them, request a quote, J. Perry Paving. Free estimate, any project. There's the number on the screen, 401-732-1730. Now, again, they're another one. Get on the list now. When the cold weather starts, they don't do it. J. Perry Paving. This is their season, 401-732-1730. And remember, no one has a better package for veterans than J. Perry Paving. So if you're a veteran, or your mom or dad, uncle, brother, son, whoever, call them and tell them, hey, I'm a veteran. I'd like my driveway paved. 401-732-1730. Letter J. It's J. Perry Paving. Well, folks, the big news of the day to me is this NBA gambling scandal. I can't get enough of it. And tomorrow we're going to have our legal expert, attorney Stephanie Murphy, on to talk about that and some other legal stories. As far as Woonsocket, don't live in a bubble. Other school districts have had this situation. Do something about it. Reach out to them. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Everyone else, we'll see you tonight on Road Patrol Live.